get the cops called by the neighbors.
What is up, Matwire family? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. For those of you that don't know, my name is Antonio Matwire, and today we will be working on the 2001 E46. So this is going to be one of the parts of the road to reliability. For those of you that haven't watched the previous videos, I already replaced the gasket in the valve cover. I still have to replace the gasket in the oil filter housing. This thing is leaking oil everywhere. But today we're focusing on the cooling system of the vehicle, so we have a lot of things to replace. So a few things here. I have a new thermostat housing with a new thermostat. I have a new water pump as well. This is a coolant sensor that goes in the lower radiator hose. I didn't get the chance to get the lower radiator hose. The website I ordered it from was completely out of them, but this is the upper radiator hose. So I'll take a look at the hose that's in the vehicle currently and see if it needs to be replaced. Speaking of that, I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description of where I got all this stuff from. And of course, in order to access the water pump and the thermostat housing, you have to take off the AC belt and the serpentine belt. So might as well replace those while we're in there. So before we start on anything and start taking off parts, we have to drain all the coolant out of the car. So I have my car up on some ramps right now, so that way it's easy access. I can drain everything and then still work from the top. So this is the radiator right here, and then that bolt right there. It's a 22 millimeter. You're gonna unscrew that, and that's where all the coolant should drain out of. Make sure you have a bucket or something to catch all the coolant, because obviously it's gonna come out pretty fast. While that's draining down there, you can go ahead and actually loosen this right here with a flathead screwdriver to help it drain a little bit faster. And also, while we're waiting, I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this air box because it's gonna have to be out of the way in order to access everything anyway. So you're gonna start by unclipping this, undoing these two bolts, and then it should just come right out. And then also don't forget to loosen this as well. All right, once the air box is out of the way, you're also going to need to take off this cooling fan. So pretty much the only thing holding it in is another 8 millimeter bolt right there. And also a little push pin right here. So just remove both of those, and then you can lift this fan straight up. And lastly, before you pull up on it, you want to make sure to disconnect this as well as this. So now that the fan's out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and take off both of the radiator hoses. So I probably got to take it off from right here. Just be sure that when you do disconnect it, you have your bucket down below to catch any excess coolant that might not have leaked from the radiator. There's these little pins. You can use a flathead screwdriver or a pick tool and pull them out, and then take off the hose. Same with down here. This is the wire to your coolant temperature sensor. So there's this little clip. You just press down and pull straight up, and then that one disconnects. That sensor right there is this little guy right here that we'll be replacing. All right, so these hoses are giving me some trouble. Both of them. I can't seem to get this side off, and I can't seem to get that side off. That's okay. We're gonna go ahead and bypass that for right now. We're gonna get these belts off next. So for both of these belts, there's a tensioner, and when you release the tension, you're able to take off the belt. So for this tensioner, there's a 17 millimeter bolt right down here. Let me try to go from a lower angle. That's the bolt right there that you wanna apply tension to get the belt off. Get like a breaker bar or something that's really long. You're gonna go clockwise, and you see how it's releasing the tension. And once it's released, you can pull off the belt. And this is the AC belt. After we get this one off, we're gonna do the same thing for the serpentine. All right guys, so I went ahead and got this one off as well. So usually there'll be a bolt like in this area that releases the tension, but mine doesn't have it. So I actually had to use it from right here. Inside this hole, there's like a E-Torx, I believe it's a size 8. So I use this right here and then just stuck it in right there. Same thing, turn clockwise and it'll release the tension. As far as the belts don't look like they were in bad condition, to be honest. Looks like they have been changed, but since I bought new belts, I'm just gonna replace them anyway. All right, so now that everything's out of the way, it's gonna be pretty straightforward. The thermostat housing that I'm replacing is actually right here. And then right underneath that, once we take off these little, I think they're 8 millimeter screws, the water pump is literally right behind that. So first we're gonna start with the thermostat housing. I'm actually going to get to press in this clip right here and then pull up on this wire, just like that. And then now that that's disconnected, this thermostat housing has 8 bolts, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Top right is a little bit bigger than the rest. So that one's gonna be 13 millimeters, and I believe the rest should be 10 millimeters. All right guys, so I just removed the bolts and it literally just came right off from right there. Look how dirty this thing is. All right guys, so after looking at everything, I'm not sure that I want to put this thermostat on, and I'm going to tell you guys why. So as you can see, this is the one that came out of the vehicle, and honestly The gaskets on here look pretty good, as if this was replaced. Back to this one. First things first, this thermostat housing has somewhere to hook up the sensor that we disconnected. This one does not. It's just all aluminum. There's no area to put a sensor. Secondly, this housing right here, the thermostat doesn't come out. You see how it's in there pretty good, and all the gaskets around it fit really well. This one, on the other hand, it doesn't sit in place. As you can see, it comes right out. And also, this O-ring is super thick. It doesn't go all the way in. See how it kind of sits on top of the O-ring like that, as compared to this one that sits flush. So all in all, I'll probably just contact FCP Euro and just try to get more of like an OEM replacement part instead of this aluminum one. When I ordered it, I was unaware that it didn't have a connection for the sensor, and obviously I was unaware that this kind of fit very loosely like this. If any of you guys are running this one, let me know. I don't feel comfortable putting that one back in because I feel like there will be some leaks and I just won't get a good seal with that, as well as I can't plug in the sensor. So we're gonna go ahead and reinstall this one and then just move straight to the water pump. I am gonna clean this one up though before I reinstall it. But now that it's somewhat clean, I'm just gonna reinstall it exactly where it was, and then we'll start on the water pump. All right, so everything's good there. So remove all of these 10mm bolts on this pulley, and then the pulley will come off. So I would recommend probably leaving the belt on, loosening the bolts, and then taking the belt off. But if not, you'll be stuck like me, using a lot of force to go ahead and try to break these bolts to the left while this pulley is also spinning left. Now you can just grab it right off, and there's your water pump. Once the water pump is exposed, you're gonna go ahead and take off all 4 bolts on each corner, and they are all 10mm. Also, something to note, be careful when you're removing the water pump because there still might be coolant in this area, so make sure you have your drip bucket down there. So there's the water pump, and yes, when I took it out, it did drain a lot more coolant. But yeah, that's the old one. Here is the new one. Dang, I am just 0 for 2 on these aftermarket parts. So this is the OEM part. As you can see, it looks really good, to be honest. But just look at this one. Like, you can see like the welds are all weird looking. Even on this side, it just looks like cheaper material. This one's pretty thick and sturdy, pause. And this one, it just looks thinner. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. We'll go ahead and install this one just since we already have it. When it comes to BMW, just spend the extra money to get the OEM part and don't try to save like I did. But let me be your example of what not to do. So we're gonna go ahead and put this one in. Like I said, it doesn't look as good of quality as the one that I took out, but we'll go ahead and put it in anyway, and I'll let you guys know and keep you updated if I have any problems with it. When it comes to reinstalling it, literally the same process as uninstalling the old one. You're just gonna place this one back where it goes and then put on the nuts and screw them onto the bolts. I didn't have to push very hard and use a lot of force to get it to sit to where the O-ring kind of pops in there, but hey, it's on there now. So let's go ahead and get these nuts back on. Just remember to tighten in a star pattern. Pretty much standard for anything that has the gaskets or anything like that. You want to make sure that it seats evenly. Before we put the pulley back on and everything, we do have to replace that sensor still. So it's gonna be super simple. All you do is push the clips on the side and pull straight up, and it'll come right on out. So this is the new one. Probably the easiest thing that we'll do all day. Go ahead and put that in and clip it into place, and you'll hear it click, and that's it for that. So now we can go ahead and put on our pulley. So put the little cap back on and then just tighten up the bolts. All right, pulley is back on. I just went ahead and hand tightened all of them. I'm gonna wait until we get the serpentine belt back on so we actually have pressure to hold this in place so I can tighten up these bolts. Obviously, the smaller one is the AC belt, and then the longer one is the serpentine belt. All right, so we're gonna start with the serpentine belt just because that has to go around the back side of this pulley, and the AC one goes around the front side. So if you put the AC one on first, you won't be able to access the back side. So we're gonna do this one first. The way I like to remember it is the groove side of the belt goes on the pulleys that have grooves, and then smooth to smooth. I'll try to find a diagram of how it's routed for you guys to help you guys out. So here's a quick look of what it should look like, but I left you guys that diagram, so that should help you out. So next, the AC one is really simple. So it's like a big circle. It goes rough, and you're gonna loop it down underneath the smooth side, come back up to the rough side, and that's it. So that's what the AC one should look like. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. Just goes around and then just loops up one time and comes back down. And then while you're down here, you can go ahead and plug back in your sensor. So yeah, then after that, just make sure your hoses are connected. I already connected them. Make sure that they're connected before you pop the clip back in place. So I usually just tug on it just to verify that it's connected properly. Same with this one down here. Just make sure that it's fully seated before you pop that clip in place. So now all we're missing is our cooling fan and our air box. So let me go ahead and reinstall that. And lastly, don't forget to put the drain plug back in, and then you're good to top her off with some coolant. All right, and that just about does it for this install. Like I said, I am going to reach out to FCP Euro and see if I can get a different type of thermostat housing as well as thermostat to replace the OEM one, even though that one looked pretty good. But we did just go ahead and replace the water pump, even though it didn't look as good as the OEM one. Put that one in there. Like I said, I'll let you guys know if I have any problems with that. So this was part 2 of the road to reliability. So next we'll probably be doing the oil filter housing gasket. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We're gonna bring this E46 back to life and have it running 100% again. But just like that, that wraps up today's video. If you have any questions on the install or anything that I did today, you can always hit me up on my Instagram at Matwire. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel if you would like to follow along the journey with the E46. If you liked this video or helped you out in any way, please smash that like button. It helps me out tremendously. And as always, Matwire fam, remember your goals and don't stop till you reach them. Peace.
Excited just to see me, wish I felt the same way. Later on she'll probably get a name change. People changing on me like they gain weight. I wish that I